All right, within our Canvas course, when you go to modules and then go to assignment sheets, you have these one-page descriptions of each project. If you click on them, they'll download as a PDF, but you can also preview them in the window. They should open on any device, and you can print them anywhere there's a printer. So this project is now going to test all of our knowledge of lighting and all of our knowledge of focus and add color into it. And we are going to focus it on a specific type of genre of photography, which is the portrait. And instead of just taking a portrait on our own, that's our own idea, we're first going to find a portrait that we really like, that we admire. And what we are going to do is we're going to learn how to deconstruct the lighting, the color, and the composition of that portrait. And we're going to do that through sketches in our sketchbook. And then, informed by our own sketches, we will take our own photographic exposures that try to match it. It's not important if your person looks like the person you are trying to match. It's important that the composition matches, the lighting matches, the focus matches, and that's hard enough. Okay. So for more details, along with some tips, these can be helpful one-page assignment sheets. For examples, past student examples, we can go to the class photo lab or photo bucket under photo assignments and look at assignment 3 and look at past student examples. And here we have one. So this was the portrait they found online that they really wanted to try to figure out how they did it and tried to match it. They did their sketches, a format sketch outlining the composition, a lighting sketch to figure out how they would set up lights, what intensity, what diffusion, and a focus sketch to figure out what the depth of field should be, what should be in focus and what's out of focus. We're going to try to do these today. Then they took their exposure, and in this case you needed 2 exposures, one of the picture from the front with the side lighting, and one the picture from the side just to get the shape of the silhouette. And then they composited them together and worked with the techniques we'll learn in dodging and burning and adjusting levels and adjusting color to get a photo that is pretty close to matching. That was his inspiration. This was his finished photo. Okay, same example here. This was the photo they were trying to match. Their sketches. This one actually combines a lighting sketch and a format sketch. And then the exposures they took, because this was a double exposure, and their finished project. On and on and on. Picture they're trying to match, the different sketches to understand what to do to get that picture, their exposure, their finished project. So on and so on. Now, it's a mistake to approach this by finding a picture that looks like someone you know, because that's not as important as being able to control all the formal elements of photography. So she chose the picture of Jennifer Aniston because her mom looks like Jennifer Aniston and has the same hair. And it worked out well, but she also picked a photo of Jennifer Aniston. She wanted to be able to match that kind of focus, that kind of composition. It is difficult when you're doing full body, but you'll learn a lot from it. A lot of students choose to use self-portraits for this. You get a really good avatar image, and you'll learn to control your photography pretty well. So on and on and on. So I have an instructor demo for this as well as past student examples. And this demo, instead of basing it on a photo that I found, and you're allowed to do this too, I'm taking a Baroque painting by Jan Vermeer called Girl with the Pearl Earring. and I am going to deconstruct that image in these ways. So this is what you'll do when you find your image. You're first going to try to draw as closely as you can the exact rectangle that your image is contained in. That is the outside picture format. Because some portraits you'll find will be in a square. So if I just look up portrait photography, and because I want to push myself, I'll put in the word great. And I look at the images. I see ones that are very soft focus and flattering. I see ones that are very blasted out and take all the texture away. I see ones that are comical and are very fast shutter speed. I see art historical paintings. I'll see tips. I'll see ones that students have done in the past and tried to emulate. You know, there's no shortage of types of portraits. So what's interesting is finding the one that you like, the one that fits your sensibility. Right? So maybe I really like this one, and I think, oh, I want to do a nice picture of my grandfather as a gift. And so I'm going to emulate this. So I'm going to save this to the desktop. It doesn't matter what resolution it's in, because we're just going to be inspired by it. So here's the photo I'm inspired by. Then in my sketchbook, I'm just going to create a little digital sketchbook here, but you'll just do it with a pencil in your sketchbook. I am going to draw what's called a format sketch. And the first thing I need to really examine and make sure I understand from my reference is what shape the photo is to begin with. So I'm going to give myself just a standard 8 by 10 piece of paper. Yeah. So pretend that this is my sketchbook page. And I'm just going to use a small brush. And the first thing I want to do with my format sketch is try my very best to match the finished proportions of the photo that I want to print out. Okay? And since this photo is shot as a square, that's the format I'm trying to match. Next, and you can actually do this to help you, if I open the reference in Photoshop and I hit crop and then hit return, it will show me what are called the rule of thirds lines. These thirds lines divide that format, whatever it is, into a grid of 9 boxes, equal thirds. And this is the next thing I want to do with my format sketch, is I want to draw these third lines to help me position the subject matter within that format. So third lines look like this. I don't want to be on crop anymore. The cropping tool shows you them to be helpful. But I divide the horizontal in thirds, and then I divide the vertical in thirds. What that does is it grids out my flat picture space. And the reason we do it in pencil is because we're going to make mistakes, and we can erase and kind of clean it up. It divides my picture space, and then I can match it over here. So I see, okay, where are his eyes? Well, his eyes hit right, this is classic portrait photography, right at the intersection of the third lines. And when we talk about composition some more, we'll learn that the third lines are supposed to be helpful for where we arrange focal points within our format. So I keep this off to the side a little bit so I can see it. Keep this in here. Sometimes it's much easier just to draw with a piece of paper and a sketchbook. But here we go. So now I know that his eyes pretty much fit right on these third lines. And that his nose goes almost all the way down. It's annoying to have to toggle between these all the time. And I'm not going to try to draw his whole face. I'm just looking at the big focal points. And that his mouth is about here, and that his chin is about here, and that his face in general, like his ears, go beyond both third lines, basically. Very big ears. And now I'm also looking at the positive and negative space. So see how narrow the space behind him is there. The cap rounding out there, the ear jutting out, and then the shoulder going right into the corner. That helps me understand the format. And those are the focal points. And I guess the forehead, I should see where the forehead starts and stops. So this gives me a good sense of the format. And then the shadows on this side kind of creep up his face in this strong side lighting like that. Okay, the next sketch we're going to do is a lighting sketch. And I want you for this assignment to do them all as separate sketches, just so you really get used to looking for the format and matching it. So I start by drawing a square or a format to match the photo I'm trying to match. And then I cut it into thirds to help me place it. And then I put in the focal points just as soft outlines. Don't worry about being somewhat sketchy. As long as you understand what it means, it's fine. Try to get the positive and negative shapes right. You do not need to draw well for it to be extremely useful. And now with the lighting sketch, the first thing I want to do is squint, kind of like we've done with our contrast and texture assignments, and I want to outline the highlights. So he has a very strong highlight on his nose there. He has very strong highlights on his brow ridge above his eyes. He has very strong highlights on his cheekbone and on his jowl and on his chin and even on his upper lip. So this is the kind of key for sketching light. If it's a circled, empty space, if it's outlined but empty white, that indicates highlight. If it's an area that's filled in, that indicates shadow, deepest shadow. So for the deepest shadow, all of this very strong black. Very strong contrast. Right? The only highlight in there is his collar. I really want to understand the depth of the light before I try to guess what the direction of it is. Very strong shadow on this side of the nose, this side of the eye. The crease there, this side of the chin and mouth. Right up to that collar and on his neck. Slight little triangular shadow here separating his neck from his collar. And then very deep shadows framing his face and hat on the left side. Okay, so that's our lighting sketch. The next I'll show in the next demo is the midtones.